All right. Trying to go live and things are still not working correctly. Wonderful. Hopefully y'all can hear me. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like y'all can see me on Twitch or YouTube. So let me see if I can figure out what is causing that issue. Bear with me while I mess with things. I don't know why my camera is not working. But that is very frustrating. But at the very least, you can see my hobby desk. You just can't see me. Let's see here. Properties. Let's go to that one. Yeah, things aren't working right, but that's normal. Okay. Hold on. Properties. Okay. Well, normally I'm live on TikTok or Twitch and YouTube on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. So I guess if you're trying to watch, go over there. If you're on Twitch or YouTube, stay put. Let me restart the stream and I will try and get that fixed. See if my camera comes back on. But bear with me one moment. We will be right back. Yeah, it looks like my camera's not going to come up unless I completely close Twitch. Or not Twitch, but OBS. So bear with me a moment. If you're watching the stream, I will be right back. And we're going to take it down for a minute and restart everything. So I apologize for the technical difficulties, but things happen. We'll be right back. Okay, hopefully we're back up and running. Things aren't going well. It's normal. I apologize. Okay, we are live. Are we live on YouTube? Let me bring this over here. Analytics, confirm viewers, settings. Okay, I think we're live. Stream health is excellent. I think we're going. Check one thing real quick. I apologize. This is a work in progress. Go to search. Find my channel. Okay. I keep that running in the background, so if I have to look back and see what's going on, make sure the stream is running, I can see that. So, we're up and running, finally. I apologize for the late start, but hey, 7:30 is better than no 30. Not streaming at all. So let me get this window out of my way. Bring up my chat box so I can see what you wonderful, lovely people are saying while I'm streaming. But we are going to get back to work on our Black Templars. And fortunately, today the weather was warm enough I was able to go outside and get some priming done on all of the shoulder pads for my neophytes, as well as a power sword, which is why the title of tonight's stream is Experimental Painting Procedures, because I've never painted a power sword before and I wanted to try something. So we are going to start with that just to see what happens. Got all my fancy brushes here that are going to be in the way, so let's pick those up and move them out of the way and not drop them on the floor. So I've seen several different ways of painting power swords, and I see one more obnoxious thing that is annoying me that I have to take care of real quick, and that is the stupid watermark on camo. Go away. Thank you. All right. Now that we're 100% up and running and the scene looks good, everything looks like it's going to go according to plan and go well. Once I grab one more little window over here and drag it over to my main screen to where I can see it. Bring that back up. Bring my chat back up. All right. I apologize. I keep moving stuff around, but there are lots of things, lots of information I need to be able to observe while streaming. Where's my chat window? Of course it wants to be dumb. That's what happens when you use a really bad mouse on your hobby desk and a really good mouse on your gaming desk. Okay, looks like we're all set. Let's get into this. So tonight we're going to start off by painting a power sword, which I have down here right in front of me. And I've seen, watched a lot of videos on, different painting techniques and how to paint these things. But what I wanted to try was kind of a combination of techniques. But the main one I see is, okay, you paint different sections of the sword, one color of blue, and another section another color of blue, and you alternate back and forth, and then you do what's called glazing to merge all of the color together. Well, I'm going to try and do a similar thing with contrast paints instead of doing glazing, because I don't know how to do glazing. I suppose I could look up YouTube videos and figure it out, but we're just going to kind of wing it tonight. Also, with the shoulder pads for the neophytes, there's something that I wanted to try on those. So I'm sorry for opening up my super noisy wet palette. But we've got all our paints fairly mixed up for what we're going to be doing tonight. I'm going to have to change the paper in my wet palette soon, because I've got different colors everywhere, and this thing is looking a frightful mess. But we're going to start off with some white scar, and we're going to paint the blade completely white. But we'll grab some of our paint and put it down on the wet palette. Of course, I forgot that I thoroughly washed my brushes at the end of my session last night, so they're a little rigid with the soap, brush soap, because of cleaning them. Shouldn't need a whole lot. This is probably way more paint than what I need. But we're gonna add a little bit of water kind of thin our paint out, because thin paint goes on smoothly. I guess I'm going to have to decide which days I want to stream on Twitch and YouTube, and which days I want to try and stream on TikTok, because trying to do all of them at the same time apparently does not work. So here we're just going to start out, and we're just going to paint the blade of the power sword. If my hands decide they want to quit shaking, but we're just gonna get the paint on there, trying to get the paint as smooth as possible. And this will probably take a few coats, because that's just how white paint works. And of course, like I said, my hand wants to shake terribly tonight, and I don't know why. It's just frustrating, because that leaves all sorts of little wonky brush marks. Get some of the excess paint out and water out of the brush. I'll just dab a little on there. So trying to keep the paint on the sword as smooth as possible, but get good coverage. And we might have to wait a little bit extra between coats, because we seem to be wiping bits of paint off as we go. So put a little bit on, wait a minute, put a little bit on, wait a minute. That's just how it works. Like I said, this is the first power sword I've ever tried to paint. But building a Black Templar army, I'm going to end up having quite a few power swords that I'm going to have painted. So might as well experiment with one that I know I'm not going to use, because the mini that this came off of, or was intended for, has the arm held up real close to the chest, and I don't want it like that on the model. So it went into the pile of bits for other uses. And one of the other uses for my bits is experimentation. But we're starting to get some good consistent coverage, doing real thin coats of thin down paint over a gray primer. I do all my minis in gray primer. It's just easier to see spots that I've missed while I'm painting. Of course, doing black armor, you'll notice where there's like gray primer on there. So we're just going to do it like that. And of course, the shoulder pads have to be white on the Black Templars, as you can see on this mini. Because the shoulder pads are white, it's easier to get good coverage over a gray primer. And while I do say it's easier, doesn't mean it's, you know, one coat and you're done. You kind of have to layer it up and layer it up to get good coverage. So we're just gonna alternate back and forth across the back of the sword and then back to the front of the sword, getting those layers of paint built up, trying to avoid brush strokes in the paint, but it's getting there. But all of your light colors, your whites, your yellows, light pink, if you're trying to do that, it takes a little bit of extra paint to get good coverage. I see these folks on like TikTok and whatnot making Hello Kitty Space Marines, and I don't envy them with the amount of layering that they have to do to get the paint to look right on their mini. I suppose another option would be, hey, just prime your mini in white. Which, I mean, I suppose I could do that, but it's such a, you know, stark contrast to the black on the power armor and all the other black paint that I have to use for the Templars. So I'll stick with the gray primer. That is my preference. And we're going to be trying out a couple of different things tonight. But I really wanted to paint a power sword just to see what I could do with it, because like I said, I have and will have quite a few models that are equipped with power swords, and we'll need to be efficient at painting them, and hopefully making them look cool when I paint them. This is taking a little bit more paint than what I expected. But that's because coverage with white paint is doo-doo sauce. Especially when you do it properly. Because like I said, you got to do a layer and then let it dry, and then do a layer and let it dry. But we're getting there. The gray is almost gone. We haven't gotten any, you know, massive blobs of paint disrupting the details of the mini. That's the other thing. Don't just want to smear loads of paint on and lose the details on your mini. I think we're about there. All right, now I've got a nice, very white, flat white power sword. So we're going to let that dry. Make sure it dries thoroughly. And this is where, I mean, I guess this whole process is experimental for what I'm doing. I went to my, can't say local, but nearby game store, Games Workshop store on my way home from work today because the Black Templar Sword Brothers are finally back in stock. They've been out of stock for like a month or so. So I haven't been able to get them painted up for my Templar army that I'm starting, or that I have started. I'm still working my way through my first combat patrol, so I definitely have a long ways to go. I'm almost done with the Primaris Crusader squad. I have 2 neophytes that I will hopefully get finished tonight and get their heads glued on, so they will be complete and I don't have to mess with them anymore, except for a little bit of basing work to finish them off. But as you can see, they already have the basic basing done on them. I'll add some grass and some tufts, and so they'll end up looking more like that on the bases when I get to that point. And I have 2 more that are already pretty much done, that are just waiting for the other 2 to get finished and do the basing on them. Alright, now that this has had a chance to dry, I'm going to take a little bit of lead belcher, and what I was trying to get to was when I stopped at the Games Workshop store near me, I kind of picked the brain of the manager there to ask him like what he does to paint power swords. And he gave me an option to try should this not work, but this is what I wanted to try. So right now I'm going to do a light dry brushing of lead belcher, just to kind of get a little bit of that raised section of the sword to come out, give it a little bit of a metallic look, because it is still a metal sword underneath the power effect. So that is what we're working on, trying to achieve. So like I said, just doing some light dry brushing just to kind of get the edges, just to kind of get the middle of the blade to stand out, get a little bit of a metallic look on the sword. Just so you can see like maybe a little bit of metal under what we're going to be doing. And you see there, we've got kind of the edges and the length of the blade. Just a little bit of the lead belcher on there. Now we will be doing some edge highlighting. I think I want a little bit more of the lead belcher on there. So let me dab a little bit more paint to I'm always very careful with dry brushing. I never want to get too much on all at one time. If I have to go back and build it up a little bit and build it up a little bit, I would much prefer to do that than end up with, you know, just loads of paint smeared on there. But I think that's where I'm gonna want it, metal wise. So we'll rinse that out real quick. Now what he recommended was you start with like your darker color in the middle, and then you work your way out from the center of the blade and lighten your paint up and lighten your paint up to the edge. But I kind of like the ones I see online where the coloring is kind of staggered. So that's kind of what we're going to try tonight, except instead of going dark to light, I'm going to start out going light to dark with contrast paints. So the first one we're going to use is called Frost Heart. I haven't opened this yet. I did thoroughly shake it up. But we're just going to lightly cover the sword with the Frost Heart. Okay, so now I've got a little bit of a light blue on there. I'm just going to take it around the edge. Like I said, we're going to edge highlight as we go along and get this thing done. But we're just experimenting. We're just trying stuff out this evening. So now we've got kind of our basic layer on there. So sort of a little bit of a kind of glow to it. Now the next one we're using is Talisar Blue, which is a darker blue. Which is another contrast paint. And on this one, we're just going to kind of go like the pictures that you see online. We're going to alternate up the blade a little bit. Make sure we match on both sides of the blade. Start off a little bit of the darker blue here. And go to the other side. Kind of back and forth. So it's a little blocky at the moment. So that might be something that I change on the next one. Maybe do the dark first and then the light. Well, that was too much. I don't know. Not going 100% the way we planned it. But at the same time, I'm not absolutely disappointed in what just happened. Okay. So while that may not have been the initial intention or my initial vision of what I thought might happen, we might end up with a pretty cool effect there. So we're gonna rinse out our brush real quick. And we'll let this dry a little bit before moving on to the next step. And for our next step, I'm going to want a much finer point brush. Let's see here. Not that one. We'll go with this one. Alright, so as that's drying, we're going to make sure our next color, we're actually going to do a layer now, is Baharoth Blue. I'm going to try and put some lightning effects down the blade. So we're going to get a little bit of this onto the wet palette. And I know I got more than what I'm actually going to need. bleed on the palette, but that's fine. Thin our paint down because we're going to be wanting to make very fine lines with this paint. Not as fine as the last lines we'll be making, but still wanting to do very fine lines. So let's see if I can get this done. And you'll have to bear with me. I may have gotten my paint a little too thin. But I think it's working. I'm not hating it. I'm really not hating it. Just trying to be very careful. With how this comes out. And of course, hoping I can repeat the process if I like it. A lot of that is going to depend on what happens next when I do the final color. And I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit off screen. But there we go. Looks like we've got a nice start to some lightning effects going down the blade. And now this is going to be the truly tricky part. We're going to go back to the white scar now. A little bit more on our wet palette. And we're going to have to keep our brush nice and wet, nice and saturated to keep the paint flowing off. But also at the same time, definitely not thinning our paint excessively, because we want a good solid line, but we want a very fine line. So let's just check and see. I think that's gonna work. And now everywhere kind of trace that blue on, we're going to carefully put a very, very thin somewhat jagged white line along with it. So that's kind of the effect that we're getting on there. And I will say that I am very pleased with that result for a power sword. So I did want to do one other little thing right at the edge of the blade. Kind of spread out a little bit as the energy hits the very edge of the blade. So add to that effect a little bit. Like I said, this is my first attempt at painting a power sword. All right. So that is one side done of our power sword. Let's hit the back side. I'm sorry if my head's in the way. But it doesn't look like it. Almost there. I mean, I'd say that's a pretty good lightning effect going up the blade. That thing definitely looks powered up. I'm happy with that. I am definitely happy with that. But keep in mind, this is a power sword. Nope, not that brush. So we have to make sure we get all the little details painted. So we're gonna grab our lead belcher again. We got the little ball right there that emanates the electricity. Where it goes down to connect to the hilt. And on the back side there's another one. So make sure you get that done. And then we're going to do a little Storm Host Silver for some very careful edge highlights. So kind of just along the ridge of the blade in a couple of spots. Brighten up that little ball a little bit. And then, like I said, just a little bit on the edges. Because we have to keep in mind, this is a sword. I think that'll work. And then very carefully again on the back side. Just kind of grabbing a little bit of that edge. sorry, I'm getting real quiet right now because I'm super focused on getting the power sword done. And there we have it. I think that's acceptable. I will not be upset if I had to put that on a mini. Unfortunately, this is just a spare arm, so this one actually won't be going on a mini at all. But I just wanted to try it out, see how it turned out, see what would happen. So, my first power sword. I said it didn't go exactly as planned, but I do have a method to copy now. So what I'm gonna do is prime the mini. I'm going to use white scar as a base layer. From there, I'll do a couple of spots with the Talisar blue to get a little bit of a darker blue on there, and then grab a bunch of the Frost Heart, and while the Talisar blue is in those areas still a little wet, just quickly go up and down the blade and blend them together. I mean, that's kind of what glazing does, but you end up with, you know, a little bit darker spots, a little bit of lighter spots. I think the Baharoth blue backing the white scar for the lightning bolts gives it a nice effect. So that's how we're going to do our power weapons. I will call that a success and continue to utilize that method. Alrighty, now that I know how I'm going to do my power weapons, I can set all this stuff off to the side. And get a drink. Alright. Now to get back to these guys, because we are so close to having them finished. I do want to finish up the minis and get their heads glued on, and then we'll start knocking out shoulder pads. But for this, we're going to grab our fine point brush, which is looking a little crazy at the moment because it dried out. And we are going to grab some Dawnstone for our second edge highlight that we're doing. So we will take a little bit of Dawnstone and get it on our wet palette. And I'm going to have to cut new sheets for my wet palette because this thing is a complete and total mess at this point. But with the Dawnstone, it's a lighter gray than our Dark Reaper. I think that's what I used on these guys. Pretty sure. I'll find out once I put some on there. just add a little bit of water to our paint. Always thin your paints, because at this point we're just, we're looking to do some fairly fine lines. Got a little bit too much paint on my brush. That looks good. And there you go. There's the full mess of my wet palette for all to see. And yes, Dawnstone is most definitely the color I used for my second edge highlighting on the other neophytes. But again, we're just kind of carefully working our way around the raised parts. Trying to keep this where y'all can see it. And just doing very, very thin lines. A little bit more water, because I'm not flowing off the brush at all. And with your second highlight, you don't have to get every single line that you got before. You're just trying to bring out a little more detail. And not put big blobs of paint on a spot where you want it to stay black. Yay, more touch-ups. Edge highlighting is such a pain, but once you get used to it, which I don't think I ever will, just makes parts of the mini really pop out. Looks really good. And you got to keep working with it, but not like that. So frustrating. Sometimes getting this thing in frame where y'all can see what's going on is a massive pain. It doesn't want to cooperate. Yeah, let's not try and snap his sword off, please. little bit of dry office air as well. I've got a humidifier going in here to attempt to alleviate some of that. But we're just trying to hit some of the spots that might catch a little bit more light. Just to bring out those edges ever so slightly more. I think we got it. I think we're getting it. And a little bit right there. That should work. Yeah, we're dealing with some dry air issues down here. Getting that little ball of paint right at the end of the bristles. That keeps the paint from coming off the brush. There we go. And I'll touch that spot up in a minute. Grab those real quick. All we're trying to do right now is just get some extra little highlights on this guy. That way some of the details get a little easier to see. Dry office air, and of course the heater just kicked on. So now I got that to compete with as well, and there's a vent right above my head. There's hot air blowing directly down on my brush. Well, thank you. I have been practicing somewhat, but it's still very frustrating. process that takes forever. So have you been gaming? Life treating you well? Getting plenty of time to relax, I hope? And of course, I also have to ask, how long have you been watching? Did you happen to see my first attempt at a power sword? Just tuned in. Well, it finally got warm enough that I was able to get the shoulder pads primed. So I was rushing home today after work. And then, of course, in the process, found out that Games Workshop finally released more Primaris Sword Brothers because they've been sold out for like a month. So I haven't been able to get any or order any for my army. So I had to make a detour to my local Games Workshop to get my first squad of Sword Brothers ordered. And while I was there, talked to the manager, picked his brain about some painting stuff, asked him, how he did power swords. Did he recommend anything? Because I had something I wanted to try, hence the title of the stream tonight. We're experimenting. And so I started off the stream experimenting with painting a power sword. And I am not displeased with the results. I mean, I think it could look a little bit better, but that is my first power sword. And I think it turned out all right. I would not be upset about sticking that on a model. Unfortunately, this is just a spare arm that I'm not going to use on anything. So I figured, it'd be great to use that for practice. Brush keeps drying out and not letting paint come off of it. But once I get done with this kind of second round of edge highlighting on this guy, I have a bunch of shoulder pads for these guys to paint. So that is what I will be working on this evening. But at this point, I think we're good on our second round of edge highlighting. There are a couple of minor details that need taken care of. Mainly getting some writing on my Crusader seals. which I think I only have one to worry about on this guy. Still too much. There we go. It's you know, for the emperors and death to the Xenos and all that kind of good stuff on there. And like I said, I'm just experimenting a little tonight, so about a little that little Templar cross right at the end of that Purity seal or Crusader seal. Not that you can see it very well. Since it's teeny tiny. All right. So the final bit on these two gentlemen is going to be the silver highlights that I have been cutting off. So we're going to figure out where we put our Stormhost silver. And we're going to catch these rivets on his armor, as well as edge highlight his chainsword and bolt pistol. But a completely extra desk for hobby stuff, and still don't have enough room to do everything all the time. And for whatever reason, my hands have decided they want to shake all over the place tonight. It's being very frustrating. Especially when I'm trying to do teeny tiny little details like the tops of rivets. Fortunately, there's not that many. And we'll just do a couple little edge highlight spots. Make sure we keep plenty of water in our brush when using metallic paint, because it likes to dry super fast and get super clumpy. Just a dab here, just a dab there. Get all these higher up edges. catch a little bit more light. Dry brush effect in some spots. But that should do it. For this gentleman, we shall grab his friend and get his little details knocked out. And then we get to attach their heads finally. Right there, next to something, making it difficult to get to. I said I was going to highlight the teeth on the chainsword and then didn't do it. So we'll have to touch that up. But we're getting there. But that is a fairly easy process of just grabbing the very tip of each one with the Stormhost Silver. Lightly getting some on each one. Of course, make sure we get the backside as well. Keep working our way around. Oh, I'll be so glad to have these two done. I don't think you understand how long I've been working on these guys. I say I've been working on them for a long time, but I just haven't had as much time as I would like to work on them, which is what is dragging this process out. And I've got a couple of quick little touch-ups to do with some black because I went a little wonky with my lines in a couple of spots. But that is a minor inconvenience. We're almost there. In the home stretch. I tried to stream the other night, but my computer did not want to cooperate with me. So I basically started the stream and then ended it because of that. All right, there we are. Rinse the brush out. I think I know where my super glue is. Yes, it is back there. So, grab this real quick. I think I've got a little bit of black down here that I can use. And put these edge highlights back where they belong, back out to the edge. Two more nearly completed neophytes, because now I have every single one of their shoulder pads to paint. Yes, it is time. All right. Grab head number 1 off our little stick and unscrew the proper portion of the bottle to get access to the brush. One of the shorts I posted on YouTube the other day, someone was like, "Oh no, you painted your minis before you glued them together." I'm like, yes, I frequently do that to ensure that I can get to all the details on said minis. But it messes up the paint job. No, it doesn't. Not if you're careful. Some people just can't help themselves, and they just are forced to leave a comment on things that they disagree with. Are they your minis? Did you spend 8 hours painting them? No. Then your opinion is invalid. But thanks for the feedback and the interaction. It helps me out in the algorithm. Alrighty. We now have 2 more neophytes completed, minus their shoulder pads. If I can get my camera to focus. And then, of course, I've been working on one of my initiates with a power fist. He is turning out amazingly well. I'm very happy with that. Of course, I need to figure out which head I'm going to put on him and find it on the sprue, get it cut out and primed, and then painted. He's got his little buddy hanging back here. Ugh. I'm on my break week from wearing contacts, so because I don't wear my contacts the way I'm supposed to, I put them in for a month and leave them in there. So at the end of the month, I take a week and wear my glasses to give my eyes a break. And then this weekend, I pop in a new pair of contacts and leave them in for the next month. Okay. So, unfortunately, most of the rest of the stream is going to be a little boring because I'm just going to be painting shoulder pad after shoulder pad after shoulder pad. But it must be done. But not with that. That is white scar. I need Corax white. Although, this is another thing I wanted to experiment with. Where is my brush? Because doing fine lines sometimes is a little frustrating. So my experiment is going to be painting the black on the cross and then dry brushing with some dark reaper to get the edge highlights, and then paint the rest of the shoulder pad white. I don't know why I'm being so dainty in this paint. I'm going to need quite a bit of it. Scoop it out and get it on the palette. I have 4 sets of shoulder pads that need to be properly painted promptly. Oh, alliteration. See, because I've been wearing the magnification glasses, I need to put them back on to see what I'm doing. That's harder than going back and forth between my contacts and not wearing my contacts. Tiny models are teeny tiny and a pain in the butt. But painting them, like once they're done, that's the best part. Finishing a mini makes everything worth it. You can get a little frustrated about the process, but once you get one done and you get to see the results and it ends up looking cool, that's when you see, yeah, it was worth it. It was worth the time that I spent doing this. it's always frustrating when you're working with a mini that is entirely gray because it's hard to see the details. Try not to jab my paintbrush into my wall behind my desk. And I understand it's my office. I'm the one who put it all together. Like, this was an unfinished room when I moved into this house. And I finished it out specifically for the use of my office, to have a place to come down and stream. Started out me streaming playing video games, but then they had to come out with Space Marine 2 and get me sucked back into the tabletop hobby. After playing that for a few days, I'm like, yeah, I want to get back into the tabletop. Partially because I like painting and collecting the minis. Partially because I hadn't done it in forever. And, it's also a way for me to get out of the house and socialize, because normally I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan of people. And I say that, and I'm a delivery driver that has to deal with people every single day. Not like FedEx or anything where I just like knock on your door and run away. But FedEx irritates me. That's beside the point. But I actually have to go into businesses and deal directly with customers and make sure they have all the items that they ordered, all that good stuff. So I do have to deal with people. I just prefer to do it in short bursts. And if anybody watches Harris Heller on YouTube, tell him I appreciate the music, but wish he would make something a little more heavy rock, especially, when painting genetically enhanced super soldiers. Need more aggressive music. But I've had a hard time finding, copyright free rock music like that. I found a couple, but listening to the exact same songs over and over again would get real old real quick. With stream beats, at least you have a little variety. As I get paint all over the place where I don't want it. But it's fine, because I'm about to come in here with a much finer brush and paint in all those little corners with white. Making our way around these shoulder pads because we want to get them done tonight. That is my goal. Get all of these shoulder pads painted tonight and get them glued on to their neophytes. and then I don't have to touch another neophyte until I get my next combat patrol, because apparently I need two of them for a decent army list. Paint in the middle of the screen so everybody can see what I'm doing. I tried to go live on TikTok at the same time, but apparently my computer can't handle it. And TikTok won't give me a code to plug into OBS so I can stream directly through OBS, which is irritating. I have to use their proprietary software. I can't really read that out online, babe. You're gonna have to run down here and look at my watch and get the code. I'm sure she's not happy about that. She's gonna have to come down and talk to me in my dungeon to get my PayPal code. Here she comes. I hear movement on the stairs. She's getting closer. Maybe it's not on the stairs yet, but I hear movement upstairs. It's the little things that entertain me. We're getting there. Getting some shoulder pads done. So the biggest trick is going to be not getting any white on these crosses. When I get through with the next step that I'm trying. I said tonight's all about trying new things with my painting. The other issue with my wife trying to access like PayPal or something, I can't even forward her the code on my phone because my phone is right there. It is my camera for looking at my work area. Almost there. Almost there. Just a wee bit more paint. Oh, I'm gonna be so happy when these guys are done. And then I have 2 initiates left. And one is almost finished. Too much water in my brush. So that's going to be a pain to cover with white, but it will be all right. We're getting there. We're in the home stretch. In the home stretch of having a whole Crusader squad done. And then I have my intercessors to paint. And then once I get the intercessors painted, I have Chaplain Grimaldus and the Emperor's Champion. I don't know which one of them. I'll probably do the Emperor's Champion first because it's a solo model. Grimaldus is 4 models. And hopefully by that time I'll have the Sword Brothers here. And then it will be deciding between the Sword Brothers and the Brutalis Dreadnought. And I really want to paint the Brutalis Dreadnought, but at the same time I really want to paint the Sword Brothers. So that's another fun thing about this hobby, is like you have so many options of minis to try and minis to paint, and it's like, which one do you want to do? Which one is going to be your next project to tackle? Like, the reason I started with the Crusader squad is because I hadn't painted any minis in 15 years. I mean, other than, you know, the occasional D&D mini for, you know, when we were playing in person, and we haven't played D&D in person in like 4 years now, so another 4-year break from painting minis. Although I do pick one up every once in a while just to paint it. Okay, so now the thing that we're going to try out, because I don't want to draw all the super teeny tiny little lines for the crosses on the shoulder pads, so I am going to do a little bit of dry brushing to see how that works. For getting the highlights on the shoulder pads. And while it does mute the black down a little bit, I think that works. So I am happy with that, and it will help me get these guys finished that much sooner. And instead of doing 87 different individual teeny tiny lines, all the little highlights are already done. So now we'll get one of our smaller brushes and our Corax white, And we will start finishing shoulder pads one at a time. Although we will need some white scar to finish the process for edge highlighting on these. Make sure we thin that down a little bit. And very carefully get these shoulder pads painted. I may have to use a finer point brush to get into some of those details, because this one is not wanting to hold a point very well at the moment. But we will get the bulk of the shoulder pad done, trying to keep our paint as smooth as possible. Which is always hard with white paint, and sitting here like with this super close to me and y'all can't see what's going on. Make sure we're using the right puddle of white. Probably gonna have to thin this paint down a little bit more. Why does white have to be so difficult to work with? Always ends up looking kind of chalky, which irritates me. But it'll be all right. Obviously, the biggest trick is keeping the paint as smooth as possible. Like I said, I'll have to get a finer detail brush to get the rest of that. But I think that's looking pretty good to start out with. Keep going around and around and around. Doing our process of two thin coats. And I have to say that because I followed Duncan Rhodes' video in his painting studios, two thin coats, or painting school, or whatever you want to call it. I followed his YouTube video for my paint scheme for my Templars, so I will give him credit where credit is due. Because I appreciate the inspiration for my Templars. And mostly because it genuinely takes at least 2 thin coats to get the gray primer covered. Smooth out the paint, smooth it down. Otherwise you end up with big blobby spots like that. It's alright, they're neophytes, their armor's not going to look as good, they're still in training. That's what it means to be a neophyte. You're not a full-fledged brother yet. You're still training. So you get the Black Templar starter pack. But we're definitely coming along. We're in the home stretch on these guys. Ready to have them done. I had to look at something real quick. Where's my mouse? There's my mouse. Nope, it wasn't anything important. I don't understand what that was. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Of a 40-year-old man playing with action figures. Need more paint. I was watching a guy I follow on TikTok painting earlier, and they were talking about a album that came out the year I was born, and the guy on TikTok was like, "Yep, that's the year I was born." I was like, "Oh, really? Welcome to the 42 crew." Because that's how old we are. And I will say I'm very fortunate at 42 to still have all of my hair and hardly any gray, which also kind of annoys the missus. Got a few gray hairs here and there in the beard, but that's about it. Let's do a quick rinse, get a fresh clean brush going. So we always get those little blobs of paint at the end of our brush that keep us from getting nice smooth lines. Because smooth is the name of the game when it comes to paint. I'm not going to get very smooth on that if I don't get the excess paint moved. But I have noticed when I did do a varnish on the ones that I have complete, that seems to help smooth, for whatever reason, seems to help make the paint look smoother. I'm not going to complain about it. If you're having issues with your paint not entirely looking super smooth, unless it's like super glopped on there, try putting a varnish on. See if that helps. Because it might. Just one of those weird things that just happened to work out in my favor. But we're getting so close. I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. And I know you don't want me to sing because I suck at it. But it's alright. This is my channel. This is my stream. And I get to do what I want as long as it's within the terms of service for Twitch and YouTube. And I didn't sing enough of the song there, YouTube, so calm down with your little copyright strike. Hopefully it's not a song that's owned by Sony. If you fart in the same pitch as one of the notes in their song, they'll copyright claim it. Can you tell I'm not a fan of Sony? One of the songs that was going around on TikTok for a while was Space Marine 2 was I Need a Hero. And apparently Sony Music owns the original. And even though the song I used in my video was being sung by a space marine. Sony still copyright claimed it when I tried to put it on YouTube. Like, are you serious? And so I had to wait for an entire month, contesting the claim to see if they would act on it. And of course, Sony's got better things to do than, copyright claim a song that a YouTube video used for a, goofy video. And so after the 30 days, because, Sony basically ignored it, the video became unrestricted. And of course, because it was a month old, didn't get any views because it had been posted a month ago. Ridiculous. Or been posted a month beforehand. So that was when I was very careful to not use any more music for longer than 30-second clips. That's why I like on TikTok or my YouTube shorts. Even if I am using other people's music, and verifiably other people's music, I keep my videos under 30 seconds because that's within fair use. Around 30 seconds. I think you can use like 45 seconds of a song without having any issues. It's just annoying having to jump through hoops like that. But it is what it is. As I sit in my basement and complain on the internet. Must go faster. I have to have these guys done by 10 o'clock. And I have about half an hour left. Although I might go a little bit over tonight. It'll be alright. I'm pretty well caught up on all my stuff at work, so if I happen to be a couple minutes late, which is normally the case, because I had to drive. I'm the only driver that has to drive an hour to get to work. Now, there are other people that have different responsibilities that also have to drive an hour to get there. But most of them do not have to be there as early as I do. And traffic first thing in the morning can be problematic when you commute an hour to work. Thought I just messed up there. I was about to get upset. Don't want to paint this stupid shoulder pad over again. Mostly because of how many shoulder pads I've had to paint. But we're working our way through our pile. 2 more for the broad coloring, and then we go in for all the detail work. get on there. See, this is why I like having a smartwatch. People are looking at my TikToks. People are viewing my profiles. And if they read the messages on my videos, they would see that there's a chance that I am currently live on Twitch and YouTube. And maybe get some viewers, which would be nice. Because I'm, what, 4 or 5 follows away. And then I just need a few more concurrent viewers, a few more average viewers. And then I can finally apply for the affiliate program on Twitch. I got a long ways to go on YouTube. I don't think that's ever going to happen. The monetization requirements for YouTube are somewhat redonkulous. Yeah, let's finish this one first. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we got to do the back side and the bottom side of this one. And of course, a little bit on the insides of the corners, on the back side of the shoulder pads. Don't think you'll be able to see any of that when I get them glued onto the Mini, but better safe than sorry. I mean, 100% you'd never be able to tell because of the gray primer helping darken it up underneath there. But my strange need for it to look as good as possible supersedes the logic of it doesn't matter. Well, it matters to me. Getting so close. So close to running out of paint on my wet palette again. I shall have to add more. Oh, Corax White. Blob of paint. Get on there. There we go. Make sure we get our paint thin down. Add our water in there. What is Bruce Lee's favorite drink? Water! Because my throat is dry and I need to take a drink myself. But we are almost done. Almost done. So what do y'all think I should do next? After I finish my intercessors. Yeah, well, yes and no. The Crusader squad is going to end up hoofing it with Grimaldus. The combat patrol comes with an impulsor, which I have gotten finished. And this is the impulsor. And so when I get my second combat patrol, I intend on having, along with both sets of sword brethren, I intend on having Helbrecht in one impulsor with a squad of sword brethren and the Emperor's champion. Makes it a little bit easier to see all that. So Helbrecht in one, Emperor's champion in the other, both with their own squad of sword brethren, to zip them across the map as fast as possible to get them into melee with whatever big ugly thing on the battlefield needs to be removed from the table as soon as possible. At least that's the plan. Now I have heard a Land Raider Crusader is good to, stick a larger group of guys in. But I don't know how easy those models are to get, and I don't know if I'd actually use it that often, knowing that, well, I know they're hard to kill, but knowing that typically I need to zip across the table real quick and just unload those guys into melee, I think they'll be fine in just the impulsors. But we'll see when I actually get these guys completed to the point where I can actually get them on the tabletop and play a few games and see how that goes. But I was listening to a YouTube video by Auspex Tactics earlier today, and apparently the Templars are currently one of the weaker armies in 40k right now. And not that I'm planning on being super competitive with them. They might be the weaker army, but they have the cooler models, which is one of the main things that attracted me to them. So an army with the coolest minis is the one that I would prefer to play. Alrighty. Now that we've got color on there in the broadest sense, let's get in here and take care of some fine details. Get these shoulder pads knocked out. And that is why we keep several different brushes in our arsenal. Because we will come across issues like this where we need to do a little bit of finer detail work. And like I said, I might not ever win a game, but my minis are gonna look good losing. On. There we go. That'll do. 7 more to go. What happened to my music? I have to have music while painting. Not necessarily the music I want to listen to, but I still like it. I'm a fan of synthwave. I appreciate it. What I appreciate more is using this music. My audio won't get muted on my VODs. So in case anybody comes back and watches later on, they can hear my useless ramblings and occasional valid tidbits of information. Emphasis on occasional. Quests and Whiskey. It is sending messages on Facebook. If you have not tried Quest and Whiskey, it is very, very good whiskey. Unfortunately, it is also very, very expensive and sells out fairly quickly. I lovingly refer to it as my nerd whiskey because it was a company that Matthew Lillard, the actor from Scream and Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, decided him and his nerdy friends wanted to have a whiskey company, and so they created Found Familiar Spirits and released their first line of premium blended whiskeys, which consists of 4 bottles in their first release based on Dungeons and Dragons campaigns, or a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. I haven't looked like 100% into it. I don't think it's one that they ran. It's just characters that they created for their whiskey line. but the first 4 bottles are based on D&D characters, a paladin, a rogue, and a warlock. And the first big bad in the series is dragon. So there are 4 bottles, and if you can see over my shoulder, they're sitting behind me. And if I quit kicking my desk and shaking my camera all over the place, that would be nice as well. I think out of all of them, I want to say the Rogue is one of my favorites. And Warlock was definitely the harshest one of the bunch. But they're all very good. Only about $150 per bottle, but each bottle also comes with its own little storybook, and the bottles look really neat. Unfortunately, I'm not 100% familiar with Twitch's policy on showing alcoholic beverages, so unfortunately they will have to stay well in the background to avoid any potential issues. But they are back there, and they are delicious. And I'll have to touch up a little spot on that one, but not a big deal. Running into that same paint drying on the brush a little bit, and leaving that, little ball of paint that wants to get in the way. We're getting very close. Very, very close. Yes, I know. I need to drink water. But Baja Blast is delicious. And I have plenty of water in the fridge behind me as well, which I will be going back there and grabbing one shortly. So I was checking to see that the ceiling fan was on, because my office likes to get super warm, and it's frustrating trying to balance the temperature in here. Like some days it'll be perfect, other days I just sit here and cook the entire time. I'm trying to play games or stream or whatever I'm doing. Of course, it's very frustrating when you're trying to paint and your paint starts to dry too fast. The humidifier is still going and my door is closed, so we are should be getting humidity in the air. Which doesn't always happen down here. A lot of times I'll forget to refill the humidifier. One more down. 4 to go. And these will get like the quickest edge highlights ever. White parts don't need a whole lot of edge highlighting, and I have the white scar ready to go for said highlights. But I will say I cannot wait until I get enough painted to put these guys on the tabletop. We've got a local game store that hasn't been open for very long here. That's doing an escalation campaign right now, which is why I missed a few days of streaming, because I've been participating in the escalation games with my original army, my Necrons. Haven't been doing very well with them either, but this local game store had a tournament this last weekend, 2,000 point 40k tournament, of which I do not have 2,000 points in Necrons, so I couldn't even participate in an actual tournament. Not that I would have at this point, because I'm just getting back into the tabletop portion of the hobby, and getting my behind stomped in every match I play. I didn't do too bad the first game back, playing against Tyranids, but Necrons versus Space Marines, when all you have is warriors and destroyers, you're probably going to get tabled. Just not their strongest units. And at low point games, they have restrictions on what models you can use, like what toughness a model. So I haven't been able to get out my monoliths yet. I have no idea how good or bad a monolith is at this point. I was very disappointed when I found out that my tomb spiders, which are now called canoptic spiders, no longer just pop out a scarab token at the start of each turn. That was one of the things I really liked about him, because he kept producing these obnoxious little units, and you can't even put scarabs and tomb spiders in the same unit anymore. Which was the whole, for me, that was the whole point of having scarabs and spiders. Because the scarabs soaked up hits to keep your spider around longer, and every turn you basically got 4 extra wounds, because I think it was 4 extra wounds. I have to look at the 5th edition codex to find out how many wounds scarab swarms used to have. But basically, you kept generating wounds for your spider because you could redirect them to your swarm, and then you had this fairly strong creature to deal with things in close combat, which Necrons are not good at all. At least not the particular models that I own. So that was frustrating, finding out that that fun aspect was gone. Fun for me, annoying for my opponents. But now that they can't even be in the same unit, and the save for the Scarab baseline is a +6, so any modifier, like any AP attack, which lowers your save, automatically takes wounds off a Scarab Swarm. So they don't last long, and they don't regenerate the same way that they used to, so your whole unit of Scarabs disappears super fast, and you can't use them as wounds for your spider. But supposedly, like, the Silent King is a model that didn't exist when I was playing originally. It's supposed to be super powerful for Necrons, and everybody's like, yeah, just get a Silent King. It'll help you out a lot. Eats up a large chunk of points in your army, but he's worth it. But that is a significant purchase. I mean, just that one model is $170. I guess technically it's 3 models, but it's all basically one model. $170. That's more than my combat patrol, which has what? How many minis? 17 miniatures in my combat patrol. And that includes a vehicle. Vehicle, a couple battle line units, a commander, warlord, whatever you want to call him. For smaller games, I know he's a marshal for the Templars. But all that for 160 as opposed to one model for 170. And of course, that is the biggest drawback about this hobby, is the cost of the models. I guess I should say the cost of the models and the amount of time it takes to paint them. If you do in fact paint them yourself. I am interested to see like how speed paints work in person. Like, that's not something I've really messed with. I know I've got some contrast paints. I just bought a few contrast paints. But I am interested to see if that makes painting larger groups significantly easier and faster. Because if it does, and I like the results I get, and then I'm only doing like a minimum amount of detail work as opposed to painting each individual part of every single mini. If I'm happy with how speed paints work when I get a chance to try them out, I might start doing commissions. But I've always said in the past, no, there's no way, because you see people advertise, oh yeah, I'll do commissions. I'll paint your basic units for, you know, $50 a piece, larger units for 75, vehicles for 100. And it's like, if you break that down by the amount of hours you spend painting with each individual mini, and all the paint that you have to use and all the time it takes to paint them, I mean, you're not even coming close to minimum wage if you were to start doing commissions. And I can't justify that. My time is worth more than that. And I hear a puppy behind me. And a missus. I know. I'm trying to finish these. I have, like, this is my last shoulder pad. I have to glue 8 shoulder pads onto my minis, do a little edge highlighting, and then all of my neophytes are done.
Sounds like a good project for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you need your hands farther forward. They can't see what you're painting.
You see this, babe?
Oh, that's pretty good.
I think it turned out well.
Here, show me on the camera so I can see it on the TV.
Hold on.
Oh, Nezuko, you're fine. Which one will it show up on?
All of them? Like the fastest one, it'll show up on this one. On.
Oh yeah. Ooh, I like it.
Sorry, the wife hasn't had a chance to see the power sword that I painted.
Yeah, I like it.
I think it turned out well.
I approve.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now finish up. You're on
Okie
time.
dokie. I will finish up.
Puppy keeps crying for you.
I'm sorry. But you heard the misses. I have to hurry up and finish these. I'll probably just go ahead and glue them on real quick. But I think those will do. I said, I know I had one, but I got a little bit of white onto the black area that I have to touch up ever so quickly. Make sure that blob of paint is not on there. There we go. That is touched up. Now the edge highlighting will be very easy and can be done on the minis. So let's pop a couple of these shoulder pads off of their sticks. Get the sticky tack out of them. At the very least, couple of these on the ones that are immediately sitting on my desk. Without knocking over my super glue. Let's grab his buddy real quick. Make sure I'm collecting my sticky tack for future use. And because the shoulders on the minis are painted, I have to use super glue. I can't use my plastic cement. Get on there. No, you stay on there. You stay on there and you don't get super glue everywhere. Cooperate. Be a good neophyte. And I'll be right back. Because I have to grab this one as well. Because he needs his shoulder pads. This is so exciting. Being able to finish a few more minis. This is what makes it all worth it. All right, brother Seamus, it is time for you to get the last bit of your armor. Yes, I have one named Mini because I think I'm funny. Because he has pale skin and red hair. He is brother Seamus. Last one. And there he is, completed, brother Seamus with his shoulder pads. So, if y'all follow the links in my profile to my TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, I will be posting a CapCut video that I turn into a TikTok showcasing these guys being done. So if you're wanting to be able to see better close-up pictures, that's where you can find them. Like I said, I make the I take the pictures, I put them into a reel or a TikTok, whatever you want to call it, and then that'll be shared on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. All the links are available in my profile on my Twitch page, but there they are. So I'll do potentially a little edge highlighting on the shoulder pads, maybe not, they don't really look like they need it, but I will definitely finish out the bases, and these guys are done. Thanks for stopping by, thanks for watching. We will be back Thursday. I intend on doing another miniature project progress screen. I cannot talk. Miniature progress stream. So now that the neophytes are done, we will finish this initiate, which mostly he needs his edge highlighting done. We have one more initiate to paint, and then that will be the entirety of the Crusader squad done, minus the fact that I don't have a sword brother for mine because I put one of the models together wrong, which is why I need a second Primaris Crusader squad. So when I make my 20-man blob, it will have the required sword brother. But thanks for coming by, thanks for watching. Follow the channel if you haven't already so you get notified next time I go live, and of course follow me on other social media platforms such as X, Instagram, and TikTok. And we will see you guys next time.